You know, every investigation, every deep dive into the unknown, it always starts with a single loose thread, something that just doesn't fit. For a hacker back in 2019, that thread was a ghost in the machine, a server for a hospital that had been closed for decades that was doing something utterly, terrifyingly impossible. What he found wasn't just a data breach, it was a doorway.
And this is it, right here. This is the heart of the whole mystery. The place was called Spitalu Clinic, over in Romania. It was a ruin, completely shuttered for almost a quarter of a century. And yet, its server wasn't just online, it was actively updating patient files. Files for people who, according to every official record, had been dead for years.
I mean, just look at the disconnect here. A closed facility from 1995 should not have a server updating records today. It just shouldn't happen. The hacker, a young guy named Adrian, he at first thought, okay, it's got to be a glitch, maybe a system clock error, something simple. But the deeper he dug, the more he knew this was no glitch. Something was still working inside those abandoned walls.
So, to try and prove himself wrong, Adrian just starts pulling the files. He's hunting for that logical flaw, the piece of code that would just explain it all away. But the records, they didn't offer any explanation. They just made the mystery deeper, painting these impossible pictures of people caught somewhere between life and death.
He started with this one, Maria Popescu. Now, the server claimed she had an appointment yesterday, but official state records? They said she died of heart failure way back in 1987, two facts that just can't exist at the same time. So Adrian actually went to her last known address, and a neighbor confirmed she'd passed, but then added this chilling little detail. Sometimes, at night, a light comes on in the empty house, and a figure stands in the window. Suddenly, the digital ghost was starting to feel very, very real.
And if you thought that was weird, the next file just cranks up the bizarre. A man named Ion Cernea, dead since 1990. The server says he had an appointment last Tuesday. Adrian found his grave only to discover it was empty. The groundskeeper told him the family had it exhumed after reports of seeing him walking around. And the detail that just breaks your brain? The coffin had been forced open from the inside.
At this point, Adrian was way past obsessed. This was not about a server anymore. It was about what happened in that hospital. He actually managed to track down one of the last living employees, a nurse named Elena, and her testimony, it shifted the entire focus from the patients to a single, terrifying room inside the hospital itself.
Elena talked about this wrongness, an illness that didn't have a name. She said patients would go into this one specific room for a simple procedure, and they'd come out fundamentally changed. She described them as being unmade, like some essential part of them had just been scooped out, leaving an empty shell.
And this right here, this is where it stops being a ghost story. This is a first-hand account of an impossible death. A 30-year-old man goes into room 313 for a normal x-ray. He comes out and a few days later he dies. The cause of death on the certificate? Old age. This was the first real clue about the mechanism behind all this horror.
So it begs the question, right? What in the world was in room 313? Was it some kind of time rift that somehow got anchored to that hospital? Was it a haunt for something that fed on life? Or, and maybe this is the most disturbing idea of all, was it a piece of medical technology that went catastrophically, unnaturally wrong? Adrian started looking for context, trying to see if this was a one-off thing. And, well, it turns out it wasn't. While the Spitalu Clinic case is pretty extreme, weird phenomena seem to cling to old hospitals all over the world. Stories of time slips, ghost sightings, patient records that just don't add up, they're surprisingly common. It's almost like these places, so soaked in life and death, can sometimes hold an echo, or maybe even become a gateway. For Adrian, though, reading about other stories wasn't enough. The server, the files, the nurse's testimony, it all pointed back to one place. He couldn't just investigate from behind a screen anymore. He felt like he had to see room 313 for himself. So he grabbed a camera and went in, filming what would become his final transmission.
His own footage shows his last fateful steps. The building is a wreck, covered in dust and debris, except for the path he follows. At midnight, he hears footsteps from upstairs. He follows the sound up to the 3rd floor, straight to room 313. The door is already ajar, almost like an invitation. And the room inside, it's spotless.
And there, sitting right in the center of this pristine room, is a single piece of paper, a freshly printed medical file, lying on a table like it was put there just moments before he walked in. Something hadn't just been waiting, it had been expecting him.
This is the moment the whole investigation just collapses in on itself. He opens the file, and his own name is staring back at him. The date is today, and the procedure scheduled is just one clinical, terrifying word: extraction. The observer has just become the subject. The hunter has become the prey. In the final moments of his footage, you just hear the slam of the door. The camera tumbles, the view goes dark, and then it cuts to static. Adrian is never seen again. The video just ends, leaving nothing but silence.
The authorities, they found his camera, but they never found him. He was just gone. But the ghost in the machine, the server that started this whole nightmare, it provided one last cryptic entry, a final update to its log. He wasn't listed as deceased or missing. The server status for Adrian read transferred. The destination, 1987, the exact same year Maria Popescu officially died. And the final note is the most chilling part of all this: awaiting extraction. He didn't just disappear. He was sent somewhere, or somewhen, to become another name on the hospital's impossible schedule. So we're left with no real answers, just a whole cascade of questions. Did the hospital shut down in '95 because they were trying to contain this thing? What exactly is the machine in room 313? And how is this server still running with no one there to maintain it? Is Adrian dead, or is he trapped, still walking those halls in a different time?
And that's the thought that really, truly haunts me. The Spitalu Clinic is still standing out there. That server, as far as anyone knows, is still running. It's still processing patients, it's still scheduling procedures. And it leaves you with one final, deeply unsettling question. If you could look, would you dare check those files for your own name?